Friends, I'm going to ask everyone to please find seats. We are going to begin. I'm going to ask you if you have a cellular device, phone, please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today will be Cantor Scott Simon.
Esai el Heharim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Mehim Adonai Ose Shamayim Varetz Alitein Lamod Raglecha Alianum Shomerecha Hine lo yanum V'lo ishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomerecha Adonai tzilcha yad yiminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakecha v'yareach balayla Adonai yishmarcha mikora Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai shemar seitecha uvoecha Me'ata ve'adolam. I will lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? The source of my help is Adonai, creator of heaven and earth. God will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is at your right hand to protect you. Adonai, your keeper, gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. Adonai, your God, will preserve your soul and will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forever. A good wife who can find? Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and nothing shall he lack. She renders him good and not evil all the days of her life. She opens her hands to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She attends to the affairs of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. Her family come forward and bless her, her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Place before her the fruit of her hands. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. The end of a person is death. Every creature born must pass. Blessed is she who was reared in Torah and who labored in Torah, who graced the Jewish world with their presence, who pleased her Creator, who lived with a good name and who died with a good name. This afternoon, we have gathered together as a community of family and friends to both honor the memory and celebrate the life of Danielle Elovzin. We are also here to show our love and support to her kind and loving family who mourn her deeply and will continue to struggle with their loss as they seek wholeness and peace now that their beloved sister, loving aunt, and sweet angelic friend, their beloved Danielle, has been taken from them. She is in heaven with her beloved Bob now, who she shared 45 beautiful years with on this earth. It has been said you can kiss your family and friends goodbye and put oceans and even years between you. But love and the holy creative spark of life that is in each of us renders that time and space as it were but an inch or a moment. When we are open to love as Danielle was, and when we share it freely with care, loving kindness, thoughtfulness, integrity, laughter, and determination as she did, and also her gentle smile, then our God-given souls integrate and carry all those who love within us. Danielle's abilities and gifts to love without reserve were strong. It bound her to all of us so sweetly in a way that felt ever present. She touched the hearts of all and gave the gift of this love to her family, who will feel ever supported and grateful for how she modeled soulfulness, warmth, humanity, thoughtfulness, generosity, and kindness. These wonderful traits that Danielle developed and shared that in some ways reframed the lens of their lives. Make no mistake, this kind of love divine lasts forever. And as it was a shining beacon to them here throughout their lives, it will continue to be a bright, soulful light for them to follow in God's eternal realm that will one day call each of us home. Toby and Danielle were the best of friends throughout their lives. They were there for each other through thick and thin, as only the bond of sisterhood could explain. And they counted on each other for everything. Toby's love for Danielle really can't be quantified. She gave the greatest gift that a sister can give. She opened her home to her and allowed her to dote on her sons and be a loving and caring aunt to the extreme. I'm sure the boys often felt like they had two moms to worry about and explain to and call back all the time and to care for. But they did it too, with kindness and respect and love for her. and gentleness. We all know that to Toby, this loss is beyond belief. An unexpected shock like a bad dream. And though she knows time and sweet memories will heal her heart a little, and she'll find ways to get by and make do, nothing but trying to feel Danielle's love and presence can ever fill the void of who she was during good times and bad, for better or worse. She was her other half, who she will miss and mourn forever. Staying connected to her friends and family was so important to Danielle. She loved talking on the phone and would call each of us very, very often. Sometimes too often. She called me more than my own mother for a few years. I'm absolutely certain of this because whenever it was her, day or night, my wife or my secretaries would say both phrases exactly the same way because they repeated both of those so often. Your mom's calling, or Danielle's on the phone. It was the same. They have uttered that expression every week for I don't know how many years. She and I talked often. But they all knew her and cared about her too. And she would talk to all of them as well. But I'm sure, like many of you, I adored her. So if I missed her or I couldn't take the call, I'd call her back. And if she picked up, it was great and we'd talk. Never for too long, just about what was going on in her life and different people she was worried about and who she was trying to help around her building and friends in need. But her voicemail was often full and wouldn't take the message. So unless one of us cleared her phone for her, she didn't know if we were trying to call her back, which was hard. But we all tried to give her as much love as we were able to and help her with what she needed. And her phone was her first route of reaching out to all of us. If my voice sounds familiar, that's because when you called her phone, for the last 2 years, it was my voice on her outgoing message saying, "You've reached Danielle's phone, please leave a message." We all tried. We loved her and we tried. The second way she reached out to those in her life was sending greeting cards and photos to everyone for every occasion. Her children and friends all received cards on their birthdays and her nephews and friends always received cards on their birthdays and holidays, graduation, and special occasions. But also she sent cards to her clergy and the staff at the temple for the Jewish holidays and the woman at the front desk at Brookdale. Even when she wasn't feeling well, she would take the time to write you all personal notes in your holiday cards and take the trouble to mail them all, old school, even when she had mobility issues. Her love and care made us all feel special. I'm sure Toby, Benji, and Joey cannot count the cards that she has sent them. It's probably at least in the hundreds. Not just birthday and holiday cards, but notes throughout the year on things that she thought you might find of interest. A photo she took, and she took thousands of photos and printed them. A poem she wrote. She's a published poet. I think some of her poems are here in this booklet right here. Articles she cut out from the newspaper or a magazine. All these things she would read or see and think of you and put it in an envelope and send it to you. Danielle loved animals, especially her cats, who had free reign of her house sometimes or the neighborhood. But she loved them and they cared for her and she cared for them. And sometimes they were the only thing that got her through the day. They were her faithful companions. She loved to play her cello and enjoyed taking lessons when she could. She enjoyed finding Jewish sheet music and practicing and tried to find tutors and teachers she could work with. She often asked me for Jewish cello music, but I would say I don't know any Jewish cello music. or any Jewish cello music composers, really that many other than famous composers. I don't know what to do for you, but it was often on her mind. She was a creative soul who used her awareness, creativity, and thoughtfulness to make the lives of those around her, and oftentimes the lives of complete strangers, beautiful, more worthwhile, safer, or better. And all of you here know I'm not exaggerating when I say, oftentimes, it was strangers. That woman was saving lives left and right and doing mitzvahs like an angelic presence doing God's work. Because she was so giving and compassionate, wherever she was, it seems like God put these people in front of her for her to save. People who'd fallen, people who took the wrong medication or couldn't get their medication, people who were sick in their beds and calling out for help and no one was paying attention to them, people who passed out while they were like on a main thoroughfare or at a street corner. She'd pull over. Strangers who needed a place to live. She took people into her home. People who were getting too much salty food in the cafeteria, she would complain. People whose pets were having problems, she would go to the people in charge and say, or to the people and say, you've got to take care of your pet. Danielle wasn't just there. She was present. She noticed. And she spoke up to anyone who would or should have been listening and doing their job. For every time anyone else, any one of us might have walked by someone or thinking, it's none of my business, it's their problem, I'm sure they've got caregivers or whatever, I don't have time, Danielle would step up and say, are you okay? Every single time. She'd get into the mix. It would drive people crazy, but she would get into the mix and help people. And she'd say, can I help you? And most times, this is like every story she ever told us, right? Every story she ever told is about like reaching out and helping somebody. When we would have said, why? Oftentimes I did have like, why do you keep getting into people's stuff? You have no idea what they were doing. She's like, I had to do something. They were suffering. She would say that constantly. They were suffering, or I was worried about them, and they'd be complete strangers. And most times, not always, but most times, people would accept her help. And it was such a mitzvah. It was like from God. She was so generous, giving, and caring. But no one is perfect. And sometimes her timing wasn't perfect, or we were too busy to respond immediately when we were her focus of the moment. And sometimes people found her tiring, or worse, they took advantage of her and her kindness. And those stories are always hard for us, and it leaves a little pain in our hearts. But she never stopped trying to do good on this earth. Doing mitzvahs was in her DNA. Doing kindnesses and good works on this earth was in her blood. There's a story in Jewish Aggadic literature, that's like folk tales and fairy tales, about the Lamed Vavniks, the 36 perfect beings with angelic-like souls who God established to exist on the earth at all times. There has to be 36 at all times in order to keep the world in enough spiritual balance so that the rest of us, we don't lose complete hope, and we always feel that there's holiness on the planet, and we don't lose a sense of God's grace. These people are like spiritual satellite towers, not the ones up in the heaven, but the ones on earth where the beams come down and the satellites shoot all the data and information to everybody. Those are the 36 perfect souls, the Lamed Vavniks. Lamed Vavniks mean the 36. And over the years, we've all sensed that Danielle was one of these kinds of people who took God's light and sent it out where it was needed. Her light was amazingly bright. Sometimes her outward appearance wasn't perfect, and sometimes she didn't express herself perfectly, but her inner light was almost blinding. It was almost too much. That's the kind of soul she had. It was her gift that she brought to the world, to the busy places amidst the hustle and bustle, which might occlude those in need from most eyes, might make them invisible as we all rush by. And she also was there sometimes in the gray, lonely places where people in need or in pain might have been ignored. This is where her light and the kindnesses big and small that she shared were needed most of all and were so important, and she was there. Danielle loved going to synagogue, to services, programs, and concerts, and was a devoted member of the Temple Chai community for many, many years, where she loved to sing and praise, study, and connect with the Jewish world, and dare I might say, refuel her spirit to go out into the world and do more good deeds, more mitzvahs. I don't know if there's that much more to say. We all knew her. We all loved her. And we all tried to take care of her in our own way and keep her going on this earth to keep doing good deeds, because that's really who she was. I'm going to call up her nephew, Benji, now. Ben Abrams. She called him Benji. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. My aunt, Danielle, loved to correspond with everyone who she knew and loved. She enjoyed sending birthday and holiday cards. She insisted on sending me more cards, even though I had more than I could hold in my shoebox greeting card containers. She also always called everyone to check in and see how they were doing. When my aunt would call me after Shabbat, she would begin the conversation by acknowledging that it was dark outside. Shabbat was over. I recognized that a new week had started, and she recognized that it was time to call me. She called me consistently this past summer and fall while I was living in Israel. In order to do this, she needed to keep track of an 8-hour time difference. She managed to do this almost every week. Her calls transcended a lot of time and space. On several occasions, she called me while I was outside at a public event where everyone present was concerned with the future of Israeli democracy. Aunt Danielle was only concerned with the future of me and my family. After October 7th, 2023, she would cry on the telephone to persuade me to return to the United States. I couldn't stand this, but I recognize how it reflected the strength of her concern. All of us who were close to my aunt will notice the silence from the absence of her daily phone calls. Silence might be associated with pain, but peaceful rest is welcome. The prayers of Jewish worship encourage us to think about the souls of the departed finding eternal rest during times like these. This is what I will wish for my aunt on this day that we are gathered here together to say goodbye to her. Zikrona Livracha. May her memory be a blessing.
And now I'd like to ask her nephew, Joseph, to come forward to share the words of his heart. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you. A lot of you probably still know me as Joey, which I was for many, many years, and my aunt still called me. I've been Joe for a little bit now, but on that note, I'm going to tell a story that some of you probably don't know because it's from a long time ago, from when my late father was still around. For those of you who don't know, my father was an engineer and very much a pragmatist, not a very no-frills kind of person. And Aunt Danielle, every year, without fail, would say, "What would you like for your birthday? What would you like for Hanukkah?" And my father would say, "Please, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. Please, I don't need anything." And without fail, Aunt Danielle would get him some extravagant gift. And one year, she got my father a incredibly ornate robe that he could wear around the house. And this robe was so ornate that we kind of joked that if he put this robe on, he would become the Jewish Pope. And the Jewish Pope robe joke lasted for a while, and eventually I asked Antonella about it. I was like, you know my dad. Why did you get him? There's no way that Jack Abrams is ever going to put this robe on. I mean, maybe in an emergency, life or death, but otherwise, there was no way. And I'll never forget her answer, because she kind of smiled, and she was kind of like, well, I thought he needed something nice. And I feel like that really sums up who Antonella was. I thought he needed something nice. And so I won't belabor the point too much. I think we all knew her, and we all talked to the cantor, and my brother did a great job of conveying who she was, a person who was really invested in other people and finding ways that she could be nice. And that's it.
Thank you, Joe. Danielle took her joy from relationships. She was so incredibly proud of Joe and of Ben. I heard about them from her more than I heard about any other kid from any other parent in the entire temple. Every single call that she shared with me was always something about Ben and Joe and how proud of them she was, and in their endeavors, and it was really a gift of her relationship with Toby that allowed her to have that joy that was in some ways parental, and it was an incredible gift that you gave to your sister, because it was the primacy in her view of her understanding of her life and her world was loving those boys. And I know she thought of it as a gift. Danielle was the beloved wife of the late Robert Elovzin. She will be mourned and missed by her dear sister Toby and by her nephews, who she was a proud and doting aunt, Ben Abrams and Joseph Abrams, and Ben's wife Jackie, and her adoring grandnieces Diane and Elizabeth. She was a friend to all of us and will be missed by all of us. Let's rise for the El Malei Rachamim prayer. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah Bamalot Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakia Maz Hirim Et Nishmat Danielle bat Miriam Emmanuel Shalcha leolama Began Eden Beganei dente menuchata Anabal harachamim harachamim Tastireha beseter kenafecha לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח משלום על משכבה ונאמר Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence in the Garden of Eden among the holy and pure, to the soul of Danielle Elovzin, Danielle, daughter of Miriam and Emmanuel, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, in the name of her family, who will be her inheritance, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. Adonai, you are her portion. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Friends, this concludes our service here in the chapel. The service will continue. The burial portion of the service will continue at Shalom Memorial Park at the family graves. We are going to proceed there in procession. For those of you who are going to be with us, please put on your hazard lights and flashers, as well as your bright headlights as we proceed there. We'll be lining up in the parking lot. My colleagues will be outside. They will be placing a flag on each of the vehicles that will be proceeding with us. I would ask you, as you proceed with us, to please stay as close as you can to the vehicle in front of you, especially as we go through intersections. We do not want to create any gaps in the procession. Memorial contributions could be made to the Pause Chicago, 1997 North Clybourne Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60614. That's pausechicago.org. That information is available on your website. On the folders, and also for those of you who are online, it's available on our website. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to rise. Deceased is escorted from the chapel. Thank you. For those of you who are going to the cemetery, I'd ask you please go directly to your cars. Family, I'll invite you into the family room.